So welcome to our Thinking with Newman series. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Father Gary Chamberlain, CSC, who is now the custodian of this beautiful church here. And we have the great man, the great person behind us himself, St. John Henry Newman. So in our first session, we're going to start to pose questions. Our series is not about providing glib, cookie-cuttered answers, but it's really about exploring what are the questions. And really, in any intellectual setting, the challenge is not to give answers, but to ask the right questions. So in this series, we're going to have a conversation. It's going to be very conversational. It's not going to be lecturing style, and it's very much about having that conversation where our participants on the panels will engage with each other, but also with you, and we're very keen to have strong participation from our viewers on Zoom as well. So the other thing we would want to do is to say this is around the idea of a university. So our big question too is, what is the purpose and role of a university in our contemporary world? Universities have become very contested places. There's a lot of demands on universities. What are they for? Are they too expensive? Are they producing the right type of graduates? What should we be teaching? Have people a right not to hear stuff that they don't like? Are we just mere purveyors of technical knowledge, or are we trying to produce a slightly wider type of person who will make a difference in the world? Gary, as a Notre Dame person, what do you think around where Notre Dame is at on that question?
Well, I do think it's interesting that the specifics of our world today are different from the time of Newman, but the questions are actually the same. And that the university engages young people in an attempt to educate them broadly and to prepare them to be men and women who have the capacity to think through complicated questions, to come up with potential solutions, and to address the needs of our world, the needs far beyond their own family needs. There is a tendency, with the cost of education today, and Notre Dame is no different from other places, to begin to monetize or to think about what can we get out of the education in terms of preparing people in training and for a specific task, or preparing them for life in the world in terms of a career. All of that's important. But there's a fundamental underlying issue, which is how do we prepare them, educate them broadly to engage the world through their intellect, to develop a sense of wisdom, as Newman would say, about the things that are important in life, so that whatever comes down the road, whatever conflict or situation or crisis they face, they have the basic fundamental capacity, the human capacity, to address it. In the Catholic context, in the context of a school like Notre Dame, we also find issues that are raised more from the areas of philosophy and theology to be crucial, because they are part of what Newman would regard as the science, the basic areas of learning that will help us to understand more deeply and fully the world around us, and to come to those means of addressing those pressing issues that we as a society, as a community, will be facing.
Yeah. And Newman, it's interesting if you think about Notre Dame then, isn't it, leading the witness here, but that Newman was writing in the 1850s at a time when Britain was rising to be the most powerful, the richest, and the most materialist culture that the world had ever seen. And Newman was worried about that. He felt that Britain could fall off a cliff, as it were, morally and ethically, because it would get too bound up in what Matthew Arnold was to call getting and spending. So it was, and the idea of a university, and Newman's push to found a Catholic university here in Dublin, was motivated by that, to kind of say we need a counterbalance or a poise to that, and we need to focus on wisdom as well as knowledge. Knowledge is known stuff. Wisdom is known how to put that in the service of living a good life, and Newman was absolutely keen on that. But in the same way then, in the 1960s, when Father Ted Hesburgh began to rethink or reconceptualize what Notre Dame might be in the era of Vatican II and the era of the opening up of various social questions, that Father Ted at that stage was very keen to go back to Newman as his kind of guiding light and the idea of a university. And in a sense, Father Ted had the same problem as Newman had, is how do we deal with the challenges of our contemporary world? It was interesting that Father Ted went back to Newman for that answer, isn't it?
It is. I think I've said to you before, my father graduated from Notre Dame in 1949, and he always said, well into the 70s and 80s, that the value of his degree got better every year. That he graduated from a boys' finishing school, and that by the time I went to Notre Dame, it was a major international research institution. It was trying and continues to try to address real pressing needs around the world. But core to that, and this is what Father Ted also was driving at, the core to that is what is your educational theory? What is the ethos from which you strive to educate the young people who come to you? And if it's simply about the techniques, you've missed something. It is about the core educational philosophy which drives you. And I think this is what Newman referred to as philosophy, that ethos from which all things flow, which is to create a wisdom-filled person able to address the needs in his or her own life and the world.
Yeah. And also perhaps in the great words of that brilliant Irish economist Oscar Wilde, people who would not know the price of everything and the value of nothing. But on